Alright, you want to improve your macros, but you've heard about the new macro creator, but you're not too sure what it actually offers. And you don't really have the time to watch these super long videos going over all the features and how to use this. So right now I'm going to teach you every feature that we have in this tool, but really fast. Okay, let's get to it. So to start, to actually load into a macro, all you have to do is group select everything, and then select one node to be a controls node. This is going to be where all of your user controls are going to be going that you're going to make with the new macro creator. All you have to do is come on up here to workspace. If you have the light version already, you're going to see two of these, but under scripts, you're going to find Fusion Pixel Studio. The first one is going to be the free version. The next one down will be the actual pro version. So come on into here, choose macro creator, but you can also change macro type, which if you have a macro in the comp, we'll change it from a group to a macro operator. Or you can come on into here into files, scripts, and then find the actual controls editor stored away in here. Otherwise, you're able to launch it from the new macro creator, which I'll show here in a second. Go and launch this script, and it's going to load into all your nodes. And then it's going to auto select everything that's connected into a media in node. So anything that has an image input already put into it, it's going to detect, okay, you want this to be something that's going to be an actual input for the user. And bear in mind, all of these media ins have to not be in your main selection. So it's going to auto select all those inputs, and then it's going to also auto select your output that's connected to any media out nodes. So if there's more than one media out, you'll have more than one output for any one reason that you may actually want that. By default, you're going to have a how-to feature right here explaining to you quickly how to use this tool. Otherwise, you can click hide and it'll actually give more room for your inputs and outputs. You can actually extend out the right side over here to show more area for your controls, to edit more features of them. We can come on over here to the tools. This is where any modifiers, nodes, and groups are going to be seen. We can come on up here and search for one, so we can just type in controls for our controls node. Go up here to our search, click search, and it brings in our search results. We can get rid of this and click search, and it brings in everything. This might cause problems, so bear in mind if you just want to click the refresh button, that also works just fine. We can click one of these to bring in all the controls for it, and we can search for a page or control name really easily with this search bar. This is going to be a merge node, so I'm going to imagine that one of the pages is going to be called merge. So I type in merge and it brings me straight into one of these sections here. It looks like it brought me straight to the merge page right next to this merge nest, right next to all the merge controls that are on the main page of it. We can also see that everything is labeled in here with its different colors that are going to be the same colors you can see as the controls you can make over here in the macro preview. So any of these things that you see that are colored, you can make those with this tool. Now let's talk about the macro preview. To get things into here from an actual node or modifier, you can select things by double clicking and it brings it over there. Or you can click and drag to multi-select a bunch of different things. And I'm going to go down to here. And you can then press bulk add to add those in there really quickly. Or you can do click once, hold shift or control on Windows to go to a different one. Shift will select all between the two selections you just made, and then control on Windows will select the main one that you just made at first, and then the next one and nothing in between. All right, now we have this. We can see we selected the actual merge nest and it brought in the nest with all the styling to show us this is a nest that is actually going to hide these certain controls. So we can see how many controls this thing is going to hide. It's going to hide 19 because by default there's going to be 19 controls in this nest on the macro. But since we only have 3 controls in here, we can change this to just 3. So if we come up here to label hide number, we can change from 19 to 3 and you'll see it won't actually change our preview. But if we change this to just say 2, we're going to lose one because there is only 2 in there now. We change this to 3 again, and we can see we get our control back. You can scroll through here to see other features of things, but you shouldn't change many things unless you see a problem with anything in the future. You can also see, by default, this is a control on a node. For some reason, the information about being visible or not gets confused. So it may say that it's a hider if it comes directly off of a node. So just uncheck this if this is wrong. You can also see it's checked that it is a nest, meaning that it will drop down and hide controls, which is what we want. And then this default value for a label will say if it is open or closed in the actual inspect. If it's open, it's going to be 1. If it's closed, it's going to be 0. We can add in a bunch of controls in here really easily. We can come on up here to add, and we can select any of these right here. We're able to open up the controls editor, which I'm going to have a whole video going over this so that you can see this. I don't have it out right now, but if you check it down in the description in the future, it will be there. You can also quickly add a tab, which is a page, which is essentially the same thing as the settings page right here off to the right, but you can have multiple of these and name them whatever you want, and even choose special icons for them. And then you can also remove the settings page and the controls page really easily. You can also quickly add an image into your macro. This can either be added to the header or to the actual controls. You can select this and it can be a PNG, JPEG, or bitmap, I believe. We have an ideal size right here that you can choose to follow. Only make them smaller. If you make them bigger, it will get cut off. You should make a preview name for it, otherwise you're going to have problems with saving it in the code later. And you can also choose if this is going to be header image or not. We can also come into here and quickly add a separator line that'll just quickly add it into here and onto your controls node and count up just the same as it does on the free version. And we can also quickly go into here and add a label, which we can style with HTML, give it a color, make it a header, or choose other various things. We can then make it a nest and hide a certain amount of controls with it really easily, or we can make it visible or invisible. This is the same controls you see on this nest right here. And when you add a nest, it's added just the same as this is. We can come on up here to button, and we can put in a name for the button. This is just the display text of whatever it is. We can make a width between 0 and 1, and we can also then put in the code that the button's going to activate. This is going to be Lua script, so any Lua code that you know, this is a great way to do it. If you don't know anything about Lua code, watch this video up here to actually learn about Lua in my own series on my channel. We can then come on over here and add a checkbox, just give it a name and make it a width between 0 and 1 again, and then we can make it a tri-state. A tri-state basically means it has 3 states. This state, which is a non-checked, we have the checked state, and then we have a third state, which is a square state that is between checked and non-checked. And then finally, you can quickly add a spacer, which is essentially a separator line, but without the actual visible line. We can also come up here and see a bunch of help resources. You can check for updates, read all the tutorials and watch tutorials as they come out, report a bug, suggest a feature, or learn about a few things right here about the reactor, about macros themselves, and about the new macro creator. Get help with the information hub right here for the macro creator, or deactivate your license, or learn about getting support plan right here. We come on over here to the edits tab, and you can actually see all the features we can do right here. We're able to edit the expressions on nodes within the controls on the macro and on the controls on the nodes inside your comp. We can see over here, all of the nodes and all of the controls are first loaded in. Otherwise, you can come down here to this checkbox, check it, and it instead loads only the controls with already expressions on them. We can see because there were no controls over here on our macro, there are now no controls in the actual macro controls list. But if we scroll down, we'll see that no controls are visible on here either. All we can see are actually the node names. If we then uncheck this again, we'll see it loads back in with all of the other controls, just like how I did the first time. We can do the exact same thing with button code or text. If we load into button code real quick, we can see it only loads in buttons that can actually accept button code. But we don't have the ability to check between seeing all controls or all buttons, because the only point of this is to actually add a button code. We're only ever going to see buttons. As we can see, there are no buttons in this comp. You can also access my YouTube and the public Discord right here. And if you don't like the size of this window, and if you want to actually work on your macros some more, as you can do other things as you're working on this, you can go ahead and press this button right here to shrink this window, bring it over to the side, and you can mess with anything in your comp. Once you're done messing with stuff, adding nodes, removing nodes, or changing anything about anything else in your comp, we open this window and come up here and reload, and that's going to bring in any of the new nodes and any of the new controls you've added to your comp since the last time you opened this. All right, let's say you're finished with your macro. We can go ahead and up here, give it a name. I'm just going to call it test for simplicity. And I'm going to come on up here and I'm going to export macro as. We can export it with a bunch of different things. We can change the input names, change the output names, export loader images if you have loaders with images in there. It has to be PNG, JPEG, or BMP. You can also export a README file to explain what to do with this macro file or folders as you export it. Or you can change the type of macro that this actually is, if it's going to be a group or macro. By default, it's going to export as a macro, or you can check this to change it for a group. Then you can also save all the starred settings for next time, which is, as you can see, there's only 2 starred settings right now. But if we check this DRFX button up here, we're going to get a bunch of new controls coming in that explain all of the new questions you may have. We can see we can export it as a Fusion macro, which is going to be either showing up in a searchable macro or over here in the effects panel. And we can see we can select between those two or just select both. And the only difference between those two is if it is an effects panel Fusion page macro, you'll have to put it into a folder structure. But if it's just a macro searchable with shift space, that has to go in a specific folder that cannot be actually imported with the DRFX. Then you can also come in here to edit, and this is going to put it onto the edit page. You can make it a transition, title, effects, or generator. or you can make it both, and that will actually make it both versions of the Fusion macro, and you can also then select what kind of edit page macro this is going to be. You can then make a folder right here, which is very commonly for the author or company for you, and then you can also put in extra folders right here. Generally, this is like a product folder of a whole group of tools you're releasing at one time, or a general folder that you like to put things in for a lot of different tool types. For example, a lot of utility tools I separate them out in effects versus animations. Although this particular tool is actually more of a Fusion macro, so I would probably just do Fusion and do both. But I'm actually going to choose both for this, just to make it really easy for you to see. We can also then choose a thumbnail for our macro. We can have thumbnails for both Fusion macros and edit page macros, but they'll just display differently. If it's a Fusion macro, you'll see it with the searchable menus, or if it's on the edit page, you'll obviously see it where you see all the other thumbnails with all the other macros. This has to be a PNG, by the way. And it can be really any size. I've seen that even HD images work. They get compressed down to that size. But keep in mind, the smaller it is, the better it is. I have videos explaining the correct size for your thumbnails down below if you want to check those out as well. Once you've set all of our settings, we can go into Export To and then choose our folder. And then it'll export either the files, the folders, the readmes, everything it needs to do to tell you what to do with this. You can check out more information about this in the actual tutorial down below, but we can also see we can export this for Reactor. I'm not going to go over all this stuff for Reactor because you can watch the entire video going over how you can do that and uploading that to Reactor right down below, but you can export your macro for Reactor really easy. We can also come into here and quick save our macro as a DR macro file. This is just short for DaVinci Resolve macro file. This is a custom save file type that I've created for the macro creator. This is essentially a permanent save file that will go into a permanent save folder and will stay there until you want to reopen this macro in the future. If you want to find it really quickly, come on up here to the edit dropdown, and you can see a bunch of folders you can open up really quickly. We can see an open save folder button right here, and that will bring you into the correct folder. And you can also see a bunch of quick access macro folders right here, along with seeing your logs, which you can access really easily right here, which tell you events that have happened behind the scenes, or any errors that may have happened as well in the code. And then finally, we're able to save this to clipboard just like how we can in the light version. To learn about what you can do with that, go ahead and watch the light version's breakdown right down below. I hope that gives you a great introduction as to quickly how to use and also what the new macro creator has offer for you as the pro version. Go ahead and watch this video right over here to learn all about macros from start to finish, and go ahead and watch this set of videos over here to learn more about the macro creator. But alright, happy animating.